So when I left, I thought I would leave and hit the ground running, but actually what happened is that there wasn't much I could do for the rest of the year, the remaining about 5 months. So I had a sort of mini retirement, find myself out of work, and there isn't much I can do because the country is not in the mood for business. I find myself removed from the working environment, that is from colleagues and friends. And I also get into a situation where now I'm no longer sure of my finances because I thought I would go and start working, but now it seems I don't even know when I'll start working. And so many people will find themselves, that is the situation we normally find ourselves in retirement. But I think 2020 also gave all of us an idea of retirement because we found ourselves suddenly at home most of the time. Some people are actually out of work, or even some companies took some time before they could put structures in place to ensure that work is happening. So people had a lot of time. They had to spend time with immediate family members. There was minimal social interaction. There was probably on phone, but people are even afraid to meet in person. And of course, financial concerns. People are not sure whether they'll still have their jobs or what will happen in future. So these are the scenarios. That is the closest example probably some of us will have if you have not had a career break of retirement. And for majority of people, it's usually a shock. So it's not necessarily a bad experience, but it's a different situation. Corona was just about a year, 2 years. When you look at retirement, you're looking at it for the rest of your life, and you do not know how long you're going to live. So we are going to talk about that, and we're going to see how can we prepare for an enjoyable retirement, because we don't just want to be retired, but we want to enjoy our retirement. So I'll continue. So let us first define what retirement is for purposes of operating from the same space. So this is basically, you won't find this definition in the dictionary. This is what I have crafted from my interaction with people on retirement. It's basically living active work, which is usually the primary source of your income. So whether you're self-employed or you are employed, basically there's that activity that you do that gives you majority of your income, or most of your income comes from. And when you leave that, then we call that retirement. Now, that is the traditional way of looking at it. For anyone 40 years and above, probably you agree with that. But for the younger generation, the people who are leaving school now, a few years into workforce, they don't want to think that they're going to work until age 50, age 60, and all that. So for them, they are subscribing to what you call the FIRE ideology. That is financial independence, retire early. So they are looking to make a lot of money and then stop working to do whatever it is that they would want to do without worrying about money. And I believe those two definitions are very, very closely correlated. When we talk of retirement, we aspire that it will be at a time where we'll have put aside financial resources, or we'll have taken care of our future lifestyle so that we don't have to worry about it. Because in retirement, you might want to work, but the opportunity might not even be there, or your health might not allow you to do that. So we are looking at leaving work that is closely tied to your primary source of income. But retirement is not a destination. Retirement is basically a transition from one state into the other. But one of the things that complicates retirement is that it's usually a transition that comes not by itself, but it comes with a lot of transitions accompanying with it. Most people will retire when they have advanced in age. Majority of people will wish to retire at 50, 55, 60, or even beyond that. So there's a likelihood of, diminishing energy, onset of old age diseases, amongst other things. But it also affords you a lot of time. Majority of us spend 10 plus hours every day at work, either going to work, in the office, and probably going back home. So all of a sudden, you don't have this commitment and you have plenty of time in your hands. Many people choose to relocate because they probably were living somewhere where it was convenient for their work, or probably for their children who are in school. So we find a lot of movement. So you're moving away from your familiar surroundings, you're moving away from your community, you're moving away from your family and friends, or the people you have built life together. But at a personal level, for majority of people, it's a season when they are now beginning to have an empty nest. Your children are all grown, they are leaving home. And so it is either you alone, if you're fortunate to be still, if you are not married, for example, if you're single, but if you're fortunate to still have your spouse, then it's probably just the two of you. Or for some people, they might have the youngest at home. But for majority of people, they will be experiencing empty nest, if not immediately at retirement, in a few years. Many people, another thing that usually happen around this time is that many people soon lose their spouses. So there's whole issue of widowhood. Many people, when they retire, probably their marriages were being held together by the fact that they were not together all the time. So some relationship experience a lot of difficulties, and they end up actually separating or even divorcing. And the obvious one, of course, the income ceases from a salary. And depending on how you are planning your retirement benefits, it will probably be replaced by your pension, or if you are not saving through a retirement benefits, then it means you'll have to start earning from other sources. So this makes retirement a difficult transition compared to many transitions, in the sense that it usually happens amongst other transitions. So it's not happening by itself. But again, the effect of all these things is that people feel like they're losing control, because when you are in employment, when you had your own income, you could do things at your own pace. If you want to buy something, you can afford it. But now chances are you don't have that income, or even if you have an income, it's probably not as regular or the same amount as you were earning before. But the other disruption that comes is structure. Many of us don't have to think about structuring our lives, because our work makes such great demands. Everything revolves around work. So you just need to wake up very early. In most cases, you need to set an alarm to wake up, then get ready, go to work. From work, you have your few engagements, come back home. You have very few moments to yourself where you'll actually be concerned about structuring that time. So many people struggle with structure. They've never had to structure their lives, but now all of a sudden, you don't have that. Probably the structure also affected where you live and what you do. You go pick your children, you go drop your children, or certain activities that you're doing. And when this ceases, then you're at a loss. What am I supposed to do? And of course, the other thing that is disrupted is your connections. Now, look at different scenarios. Majority of people spend a lot of time away from home during working hours. So basically, a lot of your interactions are away from home. But again, some go home and they still have their families. There's a level of interaction that goes on there. But when you retire, and remember we said it's a multiple transition, you're retiring, your children are leaving home, you are relocating, all those things tend to affect your connection with people. So you can soon find yourself very isolated and out of connection with your regular people. And when you talk to psychologists, these are the things that ensure that we are healthy. When you have a sense of control, when you have structure to your life, and when you have connection. And these are the same things that were disrupted by Corona, if you remember. You are no longer sure whether you'll be able to afford the life you want. You didn't know what to do with time before. Probably you're able to structure your time well. And we lost connection with loved ones and colleagues. So for this purpose, then, retirement becomes a major transition that requires master planning. But unfortunately, we don't do that. Most people do not do that. So if you want a happy retirement or an enjoyable retirement, I believe that will look differently from me and from the next person. I don't know what you would describe to be an enjoyable retirement. I would challenge you today, go sit down and write down how you'd want to spend your retirement. But I think one of the things that can probably help you is to think of one moment in life when you are most happy. What is that time? Is it when you are getting married? Is it when you graduated? Is it when you got a promotion? When you started a family? What time was it? And try to look at those components of life that made you very, very happy, or you are enjoying that season of life, and see whether those are things that you can be able to replicate in retirement. Because one of the other challenges that we tend to have when we are planning our lives is to look at what the other person is doing. Yes, there are many things that are common, and we'll see as we discuss them, but the specifics of what makes you happy or what you'd enjoy most are totally different. Some people want to relocate when they retire and go and live up country. Not everyone can live that kind of life. Some people want to travel. They want to go and live with their children outside the country who they've not been able to visit before. Some people want to shift completely from what they were doing and do something else. Some people want to continue doing what they were doing. So it's important that you interrogate and ask yourself, what would I enjoy the most? But there's a study that has been done by Harvard University. It's actually ongoing, and it's interesting. This is a very long study. It started in 1938, and it started with, they picked two cohorts, two groups of people. So they picked 238 first-year Harvard University students, which basically represented a privileged background. And they also went into the inner city in Boston. We are talking of, if it was in Kenya, they would have gone to Mathare, they would have gone to Kibera, where the underprivileged will probably be. And they picked a group of 456 men. Now, this study initially started with men because around that time, 1938, women were not going to school. So they studied these people, they followed them through life from when they were in their 20s. There are very few of them who are remaining today, but the study is still continuing. But later they included their spouses and their children. So right now it involves a lot of people. And basically what they were trying to find out is what makes a good life. So they were able to study these people from when they were 20s, and now many of them in their late, very late in life, 90 years and above. So when they were young, the answers were, they want money, they want fame, they want achievement. That is what they wanted. But it's interesting that the research, as these people grew into their 50s and above, what mattered most completely changed, the priorities changed. And what came out is that close relationships are more important than money. And they say that these are the things that keep people happy throughout their lives. Money is good, but money alone will not keep you happy in life. So they protect people from life's discontents. They help delay mental and physical decline. And they are also a better predictor of long life and happy lives than money, intelligence, or even genes. So happiness has a lot to do with relationships than anything else. Yes, you could have good genes, you could have a good standard of living, but that in itself will not dictate whether you're happy. So it's interesting to see that the four things that study brought about that make a good life later in life is good health, sustained sense of well-being, social engagement, and productivity. Now, if you look at those things, there is none that talks about money directly. And remember, these young people, when they were young, they actually came out strongly and said, money is what will make me happy. So we're not saying money is not important, but we are saying these things are more important than money. These are things money cannot buy, but these are things that money will facilitate. So if you prepare well, you realize that you need to prepare financially, but also non-financially to ensure that you enjoy your retirement. So failure to do this, failure to prepare, if you just prepare financially, if failure to prepare, what will happen is that you'll probably make money, but can spend most of your money paying for health bills. If you're not well, you don't have that sustained sense of well-being, you'll be lonely, isolated. You'll probably, again, fall into mental health issues and spend more. Social engagement, you're isolated, and we know that loneliness kills. It's been, I listened to a TED Talk recently where they were saying that being lonely increases your chances of death over 40%. It actually said it's worse than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We know how bad smoking is and the effect it has in people's health. So if you're lonely and isolated, and this will get worse later in life as you move away from people and you're less connected with people, it can actually kill you. And of course, productivity, basically having that sense of purpose. What am I waking up for? If you don't have that, we know people who have died of that. And I think we've seen this happen, especially with senior senior executives when they leave work and they are not able to engage. We've seen this especially with the civil servants, where people die so soon after retirement, not because they had ill health, but probably they just couldn't fit in that environment. So my encouragement is look at these things and plan accordingly. So these are the things that will ensure that you have a successful and enjoyable retirement. And this is a summary from the psychologists. So we've seen what research has said, and this is what the psychologists are saying, which is basically the same thing. So your health will enable you to enjoy your retirement. If you have all the money, you have all the social connection, but you don't have your health, it will impair how much you can enjoy your retirement. Financial stability is very, very important because that also helps you to not worry and you'll be mentally comfortable. It will enable you to actually do those things that can enhance social connection. And so it's important. Subjective well-being is what psychologists say, which is similar to what the study has shown, can be broken down into a few things. That sense of feeling that you're in control of things, in control of your life, self-esteem. One of the things that actually happens, and I experienced it when I left employment, is that you normally lose your self-esteem. And this is because you find yourself in an unfamiliar situation. The place where you are working and all that was very familiar, you are confident about that, but you don't have that confidence where you are now because it's a new setup. So many people struggle. And even as I interact with clients who are going into retirement, sometimes I'm surprised by how they seem to have low self-esteem, but it's just because what they are dealing with is probably something they've never dealt with. Productivity, if you feel you're being productive, you're adding value to society, you matter, that normally helps your well-being. Sense of purpose, that you're still useful even in your old age, is a very important thing. And of course, the sense of connection with others. So these are the things that we need to plan, and we are going to look at each one of them, the 4 categories, and see how exactly do we do this. So let's start with what are the steps that you can take? And basically what we are trying to say is that being a developmental stage, think of developmental stage as the stage between 0 and 24, 25 years. That was a developmental stage. You are growing up physically, intellectually, socially, you are gaining skill. We call that growth and development. Then you entered into what we call the economically productive phase of life. And now retirement is a similar phase which can take just as much time, 20, 30 years. So for you to succeed in that developmental phase, then you need to have a master plan. You need to have a strategy. You can't succeed without a plan. Very few people will stumble on success. So these are 4 steps that you can actually implement them regardless of the state of life you are in. And you can come up with a strategy that you can work with to enable you have an enjoyable retirement. So the first thing, of course, with every strategy is to find out where you are right now. So do an audit of how are you doing in terms of your health? How are you doing in terms of finances? How are you doing in terms of social connection? How are you doing in terms of productivity and meaning in life? Is your meaning and purpose in life just wrapped around your work? What will happen when that work drops? So identify where you are. And then once you identify that, then you need to cast a vision for your retirement. Only you can define the best retirement you can. And I'll break it down, some of the things that you need to look at. So draw a vision, create a vision. And once you have that vision, then you can start looking at what could go wrong. What are those risk factors that I need to look at? If I have this perfect picture, what could stop me from achieving that dream? And then once you take care of those risk factors, then you can actually go ahead and build that future that you want. So basically what I'm saying, retirement, just like every other stage of life, requires a strategy. Many people have a plan for their careers. They know what they want to do after 5 years, after 10 years. It is very, very clear. They know the courses they need to do. They know they need to get mentors. And I mean, they know what they need to do. That's the same thing that we need to do in regards to our retirement. So let us look at different components of that. So when it comes to, just a minute, let's look at health first. We realize that these bodies will carry us to the end of life. So there's a quote by St. Augustine that says, take care of your body as if you're going to live forever. If you don't take care of your body with that perspective, then you are going to pay for it later. So you have to pay a price for good health. It's either now or later. So ensure you're eating well. And you realize as you move through different stages of life, your eating habits need to change significantly. I recently attended a talk on health and nutrition. And one of the things I realized is that the kind of foods that we were eating when they were young, the minute you start eating your mid-40s into 50s, you need to eat in moderation. And some things we even encourage to drop. Ensure that you exercise. Exercise your body. The other day I had a consultation with my doctor and he told me, Rose, you need to exercise and exercise well. Your body will thank you later when you're 60. So you can't exercise when you need good health. You have to exercise continuously to maintain that good health. Sleep enough. And I think for professionals, this is one of the things. Some people think that they can do with less sleep, but there was wisdom in God creating that night. Please rest. You're likely to do a lot of damage to your body, although you won't feel it probably immediately, by not sleeping enough. You're not giving your body enough time to rest and rejuvenate. You're going to affect your immune system and you're going to suffer later. Ensure that you sleep enough. Do your annual medical checkups. I think recently I've had several conversations with people who just went for their annual medical checkup and something was found in the lungs, something was found in the kidneys, and they were able to have a preemptive surgery. We don't know what would have happened if they never went for that checkup and then they had to wait and probably get sick much, much later. Please take these medical checkups. Most of you probably have even medical covers that would cover such costs. Then the next thing that we need to look at is we know that how we interact with people will actually affect our health. So for those who are married, those who have families, you'll have unmet expectations, you'll have conflicts to resolve, you'll have trust issues in your marriages and with your children. You have to learn to communicate wisely, because when you don't do these things, you're going to affect your relationships. And when your relationships are not working, they are going to affect your health. And then these issues are going to come up in form of diseases. And then you start spending money on medical expenses. And ultimately, we are all spiritual beings. God has created us with a need for him. And some of these issues that overwhelm us, if you only had a relationship with God, they would actually not bother us. So ensure you remain connected with your God. Ensure you build a relationship with him, because for those who are Christians, he tells us not to carry the burdens. We need to cast them to him. And if you don't have to carry these burdens, you'll probably experience much better health. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. Look at it that if you don't take care of your health, chances are you'll just spend more money, more of the money you're making. You're not sleeping enough to make money, but you're just making it to later pay hospital bills. Then you need to ask yourself, is that what you want to do? So in terms of preparation, you'll need to take care of healthcare costs, because fine, our bodies are not perfect, we fall sick, and when we retire again, we are old, and there are old age diseases that normally will find us. So you need to prepare for healthcare costs. We normally say you'd rather prepare than repair. Ensure you have this money. If you won't need to use it, the better. But if you don't have this money, it will be a source of stress. So I encourage people to prepare for health, to meet their medical expenses in 3 ways. That is, ensure that you have a health care fund. And this healthcare fund needs to be built from dedicated assets. So when you're making an investment, you're like, okay, I am actually saving or investing in this product with an intention of ensuring I have a fund later in life. And why is this important? It's important because insurance, medical insurance, yes, is good and it helps very many people, but it doesn't always cover all the conditions. You'll normally buy a limit, and if you exhaust your limit, then you'll have to pay from other sources. We also have diseases that are not covered by, or circumstances that are not covered. We saw what happened with COVID. It was a new pandemic, so the insurance companies cannot cover it until they have enough data. So it is prudent to always have a healthcare fund. And from there, you can pay your annual medical insurance premiums, amongst other things. So there are certain products that you can use, like deferred annuities. These are funds, you put a lump sum amount of money and then it will give you back an income much later in life because you're doing it as a dedicated investment for healthcare. And for those who are in retirement benefits, now you have a provision of saving for healthcare alongside your retirement savings. So again, you need healthcare insurance, and I'm very happy to say that the insurance industry has really come up, and there's a wide variety of seniors insurance at the moment. So we pray that they will keep getting better at it. By the time we are retiring, we'll have the right covers, but they are there even as we speak. And of course, NHIF will remain a significant component of healthcare preparation, because even if you have healthcare insurance, it does not pay what NHIF would pay. So you need to maintain that. For those who may not be able to afford health insurance, you realize that you'll be relying more on NHIF. So it's an important thing to prepare for. Let's move on to social engagement. And I think this is one of the most difficult thing amongst people to prepare for. With you at the center and thinking about how will I interact with family and friends and community. Now, you need to realize that you won't have these social networks where on demand when you need them. So you've retired, you've relocated, and now you really wish you have that community. You have to build and maintain these relationships so that they can serve you later. So yes, work is important, but we normally say we are working for our children, we are working for our families, but we are not building those relationships with our families. And when you retire, you'll actually go back and spend most of your time with your families. So it's important that we don't neglect our relationships, especially for those who are married. Please do not neglect your relationship with your spouse. He's the one person you'll spend a lot of time with. So if you can't stand each other now, you better start working on that relationship, because you'll be forced to spend plenty of time with your spouse. And look at it as a blessing. When you look at the elderly who are single, whether male or female, you realize that their need for connection, their need for companionship is very, very big. So if you have one now, please nurture that and take care of it. Children, we are working very hard for them, but we are teaching them directly whether family is important or not. And sometimes we don't see how this will affect us. So if you're able to provide your children with everything they want, but you're not there for them to provide time and attention and affection, basically what you're communicating to them is that work is more important. And later in life, when you need them, I mean, they will do what you taught them. So daddy is calling, he needs something. He'll be asking, what do you need? I can send you money right now. But that time, what you will need is not money. What you'll need is just that connection, that interaction with your family. So we don't reap where we don't sow. Please live a balanced life, create time for your families, let them know that they come first. And later in life, you won't have to make demands that I need you to come and visit, but they will be willing to come and visit because they know that you are important and they want to come and be with you. So that decision in terms of social connection will determine many other things. Where are you going to live? That is important because some of us have one child, two children. Some of us don't even have children. Where are you going to live? Who will take care of you when you're old? Do you need to live in a community where you can be able to take care of each other? Recently in a webinar I did, we talked about aging in place. Most Kenyans will want to age in place, basically aging in your own home. But is even that home, the one you have built or planning to build, will it be able to accommodate you until very late in life? Or will you be forced to go and stay with family, for example, your children? And that will uproot you from the community probably you will have built. And we are looking at this, it's late in life. You have built a community, but if the home is not properly done or it's not comfortable, you might probably need assistance. So it's important to think, who will you live with? So is it a spouse? Is it a group of friends? You develop a retirement community so that you can assist one another. Who will make decisions for you as you grow older? And probably you can't make certain decisions. So it's important that we think about these things because they all require that you build that social connection before retirement or even during, and you maintain it during retirement. So you have to build mutually beneficial, multi-generational relationships that will serve you well. Because like we've said, most of the people you're working with today, probably when they retire, they will disperse. Everybody will relocate. maybe not everybody, but most people relocate and live away from where you are working from. So even if you have very good friends at work, yes, that is good, but that's not enough, because they'll probably not be able to meet you or to socialize with you as they disperse to wherever they are going. When we talk about multi-generational relationships, you're talking about have friends in different age groups, because if all your friends are your age mates and now you have mobility issues, your legs, your knees are having issues, you realize they will not be able to visit you because they'll be experiencing the same challenges. So let's build relationships with young people, older people, people of all ages, whereby should you need help, there are those who will be in a position to help you. And even you today, build relationships with those older people who probably right now you can be able to help. So you have to look at it from a strategic perspective. I may not agree with the young people. The ideas probably, they look very naive, but I probably can learn something from them and I can teach them something. And probably you'll maintain this relationship. And when you need them, they'll be able to come there and to come and assist you with whatever it is that you need. The other thing we need to think about is purpose. How are you going to prepare to be purposeful, to have a meaningful life? And there are these 3 books which are a very important tool that I encourage everyone to use. So on the left, I've drawn the sigmoid curve. Most of us in business community, we know it. We look at it usually when it comes to businesses, where business starts and it gets into a learning curve where you're using resources, you're learning the market, you're probably not making much gain in terms of it financially. But then there comes a time when now you start growing and you're able to accumulate resources and success. But at a certain point, we call an inflection point, even in corporates, you realize that while you're still growing and doing well, you need to rethink and re-strategize, because if you don't, you'll actually grow and later decline. So it's at that point you need to reinvent yourself, and you start another learning curve, probably introduce new products or new processes, go into a new market where you'll again be using resources without getting the profits back, and then you start another growth. And when you keep doing that, if you're able to recognize these inflection points and you're able to do the necessary work at that point, then you'll ensure that you keep growing. Otherwise, the normal trajectory of life is that you will go into a learning curve, you'll grow, and then you will decline. The same things needs to happen with our life and when we're talking about purpose. So we need to realize that this work will actually come to an end at one point. And therefore, somewhere along our careers, well, we are still doing very well. You need to start rethinking, what will I do after this career? And then you need to start learning. Sometimes you don't even have to leave employment, but you just need to seriously consider what you're going to do. And then you start learning, you start putting into place what you need to do, so that when at the appropriate time you can leave. You don't necessarily have to wait until retirement age. You can leave and now start another growth curve. And that might keep on happening. Now, this is what some people will normally call the midlife crisis. I prefer to use the term used by Bob Buford, the author of Halftime book. It's called Halftime. It's basically that season in life you start feeling a little bit uncomfortable. You've probably succeeded, you've gotten the promotions, the money, and you start asking, is this all there is to life? Some people tend to feel like, yes, I have success, but I don't feel like I'm making real impact in people's lives. And when they think about, the question I like asking them is, if you didn't have to worry about money, what would you want to do? Then some people usually feel deep down the things they would want to do are very strange. They feel like, I would want to work with children, or I would want to work with the elderly. And then they're like, how will that make me money? But basically, these are God-given desires that we have that are supposed to prepare us for the next season of life. And so the first half is important. You gain skill, you gain experience, connection, and you can actually use those things in the next phase of life. And retirement, we said, is a phase. It could be 20, 30 years. And you can be even more productive in that season than you were even in the first season. So it's important that you think about this. So I would encourage you to look for these books. Halftime will help you recognize that state when it comes. Finishing Well will help you define how you'd want your life to look at the end of life. And the last book by Lloyd Ribb will help you in that process of being able to establish who are you, what are you, What would you want to do? How would you go about it? How do you test some of these concepts that you want to do? Because some things you might not really, they might sound like things you'd want to do, but when you start doing, you realize this is not what I want to do. So I'd encourage you to do that. So this process of finding out what you will do in retirement is basically an exercise you can do. And the book by Lloyd Reeb goes into detail. So first of all, you have to establish who you are at the core. Today, who are you? What are your strengths? What are those things you're so passionate about? And what can you put all that in form of a mission statement? So for instance, I was one of the people who were able to recognize that I was in halftime. So every 3 years or so, for like 10 years, I kept on feeling like I need to leave work. I would feel uncomfortable, yet I was doing so well. My career was growing, I was in sales, I was beating my target, pension business was growing. But the more I succeeded, the more unfulfilled I felt. And I kept on wondering what is going on. So one of the things I did is to look at what are the things that I really like. And I realized what I liked the most is helping people who are stuck somewhere or helping people to develop. But I didn't know what that exactly would mean in terms of what I do. So I was able to develop, to find out my strengths. And one of my strengths, I believed, was presentations, because I was a sales manager for a while. I had honed that skill. I knew at least I can teach. That is one thing I knew. But I also wanted to help people, but I didn't know in what space. Then that was my core, the things I'm passionate about. And then the capacity. You have to evaluate what is this capacity you have built over time. Your skills, your experiences, your networks, money, the resources, financial resources that you've had. But also in retirement, what you'll definitely have is time. And for many of us also spiritual overflow. We've lived for a number of years, and God has taught us a few things, and we can actually use those things to teach other people. So you identify the capacity. What is it that you can give? So for me, I felt I know something about retirement plan. That was basically retirement products. But I can also talk about retirement planning. I had time. I mean, if I leave employment, I'll have time to do these things. I had some financial resources I have saved up to ensure that I take care of my expenses before probably business catches up. So you identify that capacity. And then the last part is to find out what role would I play best. Some people will be able to be consultants, others can be board members, others can be donors. There are very, very many roles that you can. But as you do these exercises, you'll be able to see where you fit. And then you ask yourself, the things I want to do, the resources that I have, where will I be able to do this? Will I be able to do it where I am? Will I need to join another organization to be able now to apply the skills and passions? Or do I need to start something else? So for me, it meant starting something new. Whatever it is that I wanted to do more of retirement planning, more of the qualitative part, helping people to define and to plan. I couldn't do that in the context that I was in. The company I was in, they were doing products. So I had to start to step out and do what I do. So an ideal situation would be to identify something you're very passionate about, something that you are good at, you're able to be effective, you make an impact in people's lives, and that energizes you. Now, this is when you do something for fun. And what usually happens is that you can actually do this for fun, but ultimately, because you're having an impact and you're doing it so well, and you're so happy about doing it, you end up making an income from it. So I would encourage you to consider doing this, not at retirement, before retirement, because some of the things that you'll probably be doing, you need to equip yourself with skills, you need to go back to school and learn something or to connect. There might be something that you need to do. And then when you're ready, then it means that when that opportunity comes, then you'll be able to exit employment. So some of these things, for example, what I do, I believe I can do it as long as my health can allow me. So I can do this for as long as I can. But it could also mean that I will reach another inflection point and I will also probably need to reinvent myself. But majority of people, and especially men, who tend to be so single-minded about their work, they don't do this. They think about it, but they don't put concrete plans. So when they leave work, many of them are left with, now what? What am I supposed to do? Women tend to have their lives a little bit more diversified. Work is just one of the components in their lives, but for men, it tends to be like the main part of their lives. So there's one researcher called Manfred Kitz. What he says is that for busy, successful executives, one of the things you have to do is several years before retirement, you have to stop being single-minded about work and money and invest in other things other than money. So basically what he's saying is that success you have at work could actually set you up for a difficult retirement if you don't shift at the right time. And I think for us, what we need to look at is that we cannot say a few years before retirement. We are not in the developed world where they are keeping people to work as long as they can. People are losing jobs much earlier than they expect. So you don't know when you're going to lose your job. And for executives as well, we know the senior you are, the more temporary your job is. So you can actually leave work at any time. So I would say this is something that needs to be part and parcel of your development. So we've looked at the health issues, what we need to do. We've looked at the social connections. We've looked at the productivity. And now let's go to the financials. So when it comes to financial well-being, we need to ensure that we are building resources to ensure that we continue being financially independent. I think the one thing that enables people to feel dignified is when later in life you're able to afford the lifestyle that you can. Now, many people don't do that. Most people tend to adjust their lifestyle to fit the income they are getting. And that can be a difficult transition for very many people. So it's important that you build the resources, you define your lifestyle in such a manner that you are able to quantify how much money do I need to run this lifestyle. So you will have your basic expenses. We are talking about food. I mean, the living expenses, the healthcare. I mean, you have to ensure where you are living, you maintain the home in a good condition. So there are those basic expenses that you must have, and we encourage you to have that come from guaranteed income. What is a guaranteed income? It's an income that will come no matter what. So we have a few examples of such products, things like bonds. When you take a long-term bond, it pays you interest every 6 months. The risk of default is very, very low. So far, bonds have been able to deliver incomes. It could be retirement benefits such as annuities or income drawdown. It could be something as like insurance products. Probably you have maturities that are guaranteed and you'll be able to use them. So it's important that you tie that. Then there's discretionary spending. That is, these are expenses which you really don't have to do if you don't have money. And part of it are things like leisure activities. So that you can tie to regular income. That is things that give you an income, but probably sometimes you're not sure of the amount, or you're not even sure that it will come every month or whatever frequency it is. And then, of course, it's important to also plan for windfalls. Sometimes things happen. You get some good money somewhere, you sell an asset and it's able to fetch you a lot of money. If you don't plan for that money, what happens is that it is not usually used well. So plan to be generous, to give, to impact society, to help people who need your help. Do things that will have an impact, and even leave a legacy. Some people want to leave a financial legacy to their families. But these things, you really, really need to plan them. So what that means is that the questions, I think I skipped earlier, we can go through them. You need to be clear about this. This is how you define your lifestyle. You ask yourself, where will I live? What is the location of where I'm going to live? Am I going to stay here? Am I going to move up country? What kind of a house will I have? One of the major challenges that probably my retired clients normally talk about is that they realize they have a big house than they need, because they put up this house or they bought this house when they had the whole family at home, but now everybody has left and they no longer need it. It's so expensive to maintain. So do you need to shift that at one point and change your housing? Which community are you going to live in? Because that will determine whether you'll have help or you'll need to hire help to be able to live well. Healthcare. I mean, what kind of healthcare do you want to enjoy? Do you want to go to the first-tier hospitals, or will you be comfortable with the public hospitals? How do you want to relate with your family and friends? You will need money to finance some of those activities. What income level do you need? And that comes from defining the lifestyle that you want to have. and where will it come from? So one of the things you can do is to look at your current income sources. Where is your income coming from? Employment, probably the largest. So generally, employment is usually replaced by a pension. Most of you just got your pension statements. Ask the provider to give you an estimate of what that fund would give you as an income if you retired today, and find out if that would be able to sustain the lifestyle you want. Do you want to learn and grow? Learning does not stop when you retire. You might want to advance your knowledge in something. Something can cost money. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Are you satisfied with your current accomplishments, but do you want to accomplish more? For example, do you want to probably have properties? Do you want to travel? And so that you can budget and plan for these things, the accomplishments. This will differ from person to person. What will you do for leisure? Do you want to play golf all the time? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be, exactly what will you do? Most leisure activities, not all, will involve some cost. Do you want to explore something new? Especially for those who will probably be shifting from what they do to something else. What could that be? What could be the cost? What do you want to contribute in society? What will you do on a daily basis? And what do you want to be remembered for? Now, when you think about these things, it will translate into activities or things that you need to plan for. And then I normally tell people, if you start thinking about what will this cost in retirement, you will lose it because we have no idea what it will be. So I usually encourage you, just think about it in terms of today's cost. And then ask yourself, today, would I have the money to do that? If you can't, then you start preparing, because once you, for example, start saving for these items, then you will be investing that money. So the issues of inflation and the rest will also take care of themselves. So it's important that you interrogate the life that you want and define it, because it will differ from your friends. And this will also now help you use the financial resources and invest to provide your desired life. That is how you'll enjoy your lifestyle. If you invest according to other people's investments, you could be investing to enjoy their life, which most likely you'll not be able to enjoy. So when it comes to finances, or rather when it comes to proper planning, including finances, you need to look at, this is the third step in retirement planning. What are those risks that are likely to affect the plan I have created for retirement? We know things like ill health. You could get sick and lose your ability to generate an income. You might have to change jobs or not even work at all. Then you might not be able to bring about the dream that you have. You could lose your job much earlier than you expected. And I keep telling people, this is a transition in life we all need to prepare for. It will happen to many people. Dependence. Are you financing your parents' retirement? And I mean, are you still taking care of your children? Are there people who need your resources? And sometimes you can even take care of these dependents. You can educate your children, but sometimes they're not able to launch well in life, and they're forced to come back and live with us. How will we take care of them and help them to stand on their feet? Marital status, like I mentioned, you could lose your spouse, and he's probably the one who was taking care of retirement planning. Unfortunately, these are stories I hear. Somebody comes and says, you know what? I thought I had a retirement plan, but it looks like me and my husband are going different ways. And he's the one who was taking care of retirement plan. So I have no retirement planning, but there's something you can do about that. Widowhood. Many people will be widowed during retirement. It's important to start thinking about it. If you're the main person who has a pension, then you might consider taking a joint annuity so that in the event of your early death, your spouse will be provided for. The other thing that is likely to happen, I forgot to mention when it comes to ill health, very many people on retirement, either their own health or the health of your spouses usually deteriorates. And some people have to take care of the spouse. And in some cases, unfortunately, they die having depleted the family resources. You really have to look at all those things and see how can we plan for them. Inflation, I think we're experiencing that. What we were using 10,000, what it could buy in January, probably you can only buy half of it. And even in developed countries, we are seeing very many people who are in retirement going back to work. Fortunately, they have jobs. What about for us who we might not have those jobs? Taxation can change. We saw an attempt to tax pensioners' money. Taxes can come on rental properties and many other things. We have seen government introduce this. How would that impact your income? Investment returns. You could do investments expecting to get good returns, like many people bought land expecting super profits, but now it's even difficult to sell land, or it's even difficult to get that gain you anticipated. But the other thing we really need to think about is that we could live much, much longer than we anticipate. Previously, people used to think retirement is a short event. People used to think, especially the men would say, I die in 10 years. My friend, plan for 20, 30, 40 years. My insurance background teaches me that when you go to buy an annuity from them, they estimate you're going to live to age 85. I'm sure there's something they know. Please plan for another 30, 35 years in retirement. And so when you do now your investment, you have to look at them as a means to deliver the desired lifestyle. Now, many of us approach retirement from just one perspective. We just want to grow our money. But the assets we put our money might not be able to deliver the lifestyle that we want. And I see that a lot with my retirement clients. Majority of them, 97%, if not 100%, all of them realize they have more property than they need. So you have people holding property worth 10 million or even more, a lot more. And what basically they've realized, as long as this land lies there, it's not being developed, it's basically 10 million shillings giving me nothing. And for a long time. And the other thing that research has shown is that when people retire, very few people want to liquidate their assets, especially things like land. So you do investments which you never reap benefits from, because you're also struggling to liquidate them. Well, probably that if you bought bonds, for example, I mean, we just had an infrastructure bond the other day, which was giving about 13.7%. That is a return of, if you invested 1 million, then you'd have 137,000 every year. So if you invested 10 million, you'd actually have 1.37 million every year for as long as you're holding that bond. What could you do with that money? Yes, investment, we don't invest just for the sake of investment. The right investment is investing to enable you generate the income you need to live your desired lifestyle. And that is why we cannot invest how my friend is investing, unless if we sat down and really compared our retirement plans, and that is how they are. And at this point, I want to encourage those who are closer to retirement, please. We normally say we are investing so that you can live a better day tomorrow. Now, better day starts then when you retire. So if those assets cannot be utilized in the form they are in, please convert them in a manner that you can use them. After all, and I like encouraging people, we are just supposed to manage these resources God has given us. But ultimately, it is God who sustains us. It's God who protects us. It's God who supplies our need. So if you keep these resources as your security, I think you're just denying yourself. Well, probably, I mean, God has already made provision for you. So please utilize the resources for the intended purpose. And so that leads me to goal-based investing. This is the approach I take to investing, even at whatever stage of life you are in as you move towards retirement. When you make an investment, tie it to a goal so that it's able to deliver on that goal. So we all need an emergency fund, and many of us don't have emergency funds, and this is one of the reasons why we are always in trouble. We need an emergency fund. If you're in a stable employment with this, we say 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. If your job is not very stable, stretch that even to 12 months. If you're in business, you need 12 months, 12 months to 24 months worth of your living expenses, because if that income doesn't come, what will you do? So when you have an emergency fund, or you have some expenses you're anticipating, school fees or a trip you want to make in a few months, then you can invest them in a product like money market. If it is for education, a common goal, then you don't have to always borrow from the SACCO. Remember, when you borrow from the SACCO, you pay for school fees plus 12%. But you can put that money in certain products that can enable you to pay for your school fees. Treasury bonds. If you take short-term treasury bonds, they will mature at a certain point, and you can pay school fees for that. I encourage people, get 100,000, buy a treasury bond for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. When your daughter is going to school, then you'll have school fees for 1 year. Buy another 100,000 for Form 2 and similar things. Annuities. If you have a lump sum, and many of us will get lump sums in form of bonuses or you've gotten some money from somewhere else, go to an insurance company and buy an annuity, defer it until your child is going to university, and then let it give you an income every year for 5 years to ensure that your child goes through university. So this 1 million, if you keep it for like 10 years, it's going to grow probably into something like 5 million. That is a product, and then you secure that particular goal. If you want to have a home, yes, you could buy land now, you can sell later to raise a deposit for a mortgage or to actually develop. And then for financial independence, basically where now you start building this income to ensure that you have adequate income to cover your lifestyle, so that even if you lost your job or retired, you'd actually be able to sustain or fund that lifestyle. Then you'll have to diversify and buy and invest in treasury bonds, retirement benefits, those who are interested in property, those who are interested in shares, those who want to build businesses, and even insurance products can help. So as busy professionals, one of the things we'll normally lack is time. I mean, we are tied up in our jobs. So having side hustles, many of them don't succeed because you're not able to give them the attention they deserve. We may not have the expertise in terms of investment. We're not investment professionals. And the other thing is that there are risks. There are so many risks, like we have seen, you need to manage. So encourage people to use professionals to help them to invest. And you can do that by investing, one, in passive investments such as bonds, retirement benefits, insurance products. Some of these products will, when it is designed to meet a specific goal, and when it's the right investment, it will give you peace of mind. You'll be able to invest in something that will serve your purpose, but it will not be taking a lot of your time from your regular work. So if I was just to break down the investments, investment would have to be a webinar on itself. We can't talk about specifically where you put your money, but every investment normally has a specific objective it meets. So for example, when you buy land, you want to grow the value of that investment. You put in 1 million, you're hoping you're going to sell it at 2 million or more. Now, during that period, that investment does not give you money or anything. If anything, it will probably take money from your pocket. You'll need to fence it, you'll need to visit it and visit it with a few friends and have drinks after that. It's important to note that. But later you're going to get capital gains from it. So you'll be able to get money at a later date. So this can serve certain purposes in your finances today, and including retirement. But land will not give you money for food. So probably if you're using land as your retirement plan, before retirement, you need to convert it into cash, convert it into annuities, or convert it into bonds so that it generates an income. But the other investments you make that give you a guaranteed or a regular income. So if you put your money in retirement benefits, yes, it will be growing, but it will give you an income at a certain point. If you have property and you have developed it, it's giving you what we call regular. We don't call it guaranteed income because it depends on the occupancy. If you have a tenant or you don't have a tenant. So this will give you an income. So in retirement, your greatest need will be income and liquidity, because if you need something, you need to have the money to do it. If you are unwell, you need to have money to go into hospital. So you need assets that will give you income, both guaranteed and regular, but you also need a lot of your assets to liquid form. Liquid form basically means you can easily access them, and as long as they remain invested, they also maintain value. So you can have shares, for example, or a business as your asset. Yes, it can be accessible, but will it maintain value? So it's important that you ensure that you're working with assets that maintain value, so that if it's, for example, a healthcare fund, I know I have 5 million. If I need treatment outside the country and I need 5 million, I know that particular product, that particular investment will still maintain the value and I can access it on short notice. But you also need to look at the risk that we are exposed to when we take investments. So there are certain investments that preserve capital, and there are certain investments that do not preserve capital. So for example, when you invest in shares or you invest in a business, that company or your business could go bust. It might not be able to generate a return, or you could actually lose it altogether. So it's important to know as you move towards retirement, your investments need to move from growth and risky investments, and they move more towards income and liquid investments, so that you're able to meet your needs when you need them. Of course, like we said, retirement stage, retirement is a phase, is a developmental phase. It could span a lot of years. We also need to moderate and ensure that we also have investments that are growing. So even as you have liquid investments, you need to ensure that where they are able to gain the maximum return they can without compromising on risk, without making you exposed to a greater risk than you are likely to incur. So just a few examples of those products I've talked about. There's one particular product that many people don't know about it, which would be very suitable for especially people who are in business or people who get a lot of lump sums. They are called deferred annuities. You can actually use that particular product, bring your lump sum and defer access for that money to a specific goal. So you can either say, this is for my retirement income, or this will be for my healthcare in retirement, or this will be for children's college education. And what happens is that because this money is locked, it normally grows very, very fast. So I have a client who came, who was late at 50, didn't have a retirement plan at all. How she thought her retirement would work out could not work out, but fortunately she had some 4 million somewhere. So we were able to invest it. She anticipates she'll be able to work until age 65. We deferred it for 15 years, and the quotation we got from the insurance company is that would give her an income of 190,000 for the rest of her life from age 65, for the rest of her life, but also guaranteed for a minimum of 15 years. So even if she died soon after, starting to access this income, it would pay the beneficiaries for the next 15 years. Now, if she chose to go into business or to buy land, what she would have, yes, we shouldn't have the certainty that she will have income that she needs. So what this product does is that it gives you guaranteed income, and it can free you now to work. The next good investment you can go into with the intention to meet your need in retirement is bonds. It's unfortunate that our bond market is, many of the individual retail investors are normally foreigners. Most of us don't invest in bonds. Bonds are giving very good returns, 12%, 13%, depending on the term of your bond and the type of bond. And the good thing about it is that the government is a good debtor. Yeah, there's all this talk about everything, that the government is not doing so well. But how many governments in the world default on their bonds? Very, very, very few. The governments take care of this channel because it's one of the ways they're able to raise revenue. And it also has unlimited resources. It can print money. It can borrow John to pay Peter. So this tends to be a very good investment. And the other thing about bonds is that they're also very liquid. You can actually sell them later. You don't have to hold it until maturity. So even when we encourage people to have bonds in retirement, is to ensure that one, they're getting an income, but should they need to sell it, you should be able to sell it within a period of about a week or two, or even a few days, depending on the price that you're asking for. In our context, we really love property. Everybody needs a home. We encourage people to have a home. It's one of the things that anchors you and gives you stability. But we know that a home is not an investment. Yet for majority of people, a home tends to be the biggest investment they have in their books. So it's important to realize that you'd be sitting on 30 million or 20 million worth of property, but it's not giving you an income. Then it's good to ensure that you're putting up a house that you will need in the long term, but you can free some of those resources to probably have real estate if you really like investing in property. So real estate will give you a regular income, but it's important to notice that you'll also need to keep maintaining that property so that it is able to fetch a good rate. And we pray that you'll have a good occupancy. Some of the challenges some of my retired clients are having is not having tenants. So if probably you're expecting a lot of income from your property, but for whatever reason, you're not able to have a tenant, and COVID accelerated some of these things, then you realize if that, it looked like a very stable source of income, but when there's no tenant, there's actually no income. And of course, a money market is basically, a money market fund is a tool that we should always have. One, to maintain our emergency funds and the money that we need in a few months, but also as we grow older in retirement and we need more liquidity, we will tend to have a lot more money in money market fund and other forms of unit trust such as bond funds, because they are easily converted into cash. Within 2, 3 to 5 working days, you can actually convert that into cash. So I hope you've learned something. And what I would want you to take out is that retirement is something that requires a master plan. For you to have an enjoyable retirement, first of all, you have to define it to say what is enjoyable, and then you need to have a plan to deliver on that retirement. So you need a plan, and sometimes we are experts in other fields, not in retirement planning, and that's why we are there. I work with clients to help them plan for retirement, and if you need that help, I would be able to do that. But you can start from a book I have written, where most of those things that we've discussed, they are all in that book. I've tried to explain retirement planning in simple English, giving examples or even products, some of the products that we have talked about. Maintain social connections. You have to start now. Those relationships, those connections won't come when you need them, but also find what you will do with your time. And probably if you're able to find that earlier and start before your exit age, it would be good to exit on your own terms. So manage your retirement process, because it will determine how you settle into retirement. If you're forced out of employment into retirement, you will struggle. But if you live on your own terms, you prepare until you feel you're ready to live. Believe me, you'll enjoy it, because it will be something you'll be anticipating. It is not something you'll be dreading, and you're likely to enjoy your retirement. So you can get this book from various sources. My colleague Nova will type in the chat where you can get this book. For those who are in Nairobi, it can be easily delivered to you by some of these bookshops, such as Nuria, Rafu Books, and who else? Kibanga Books and Kusoma. They normally do deliveries. For the rest, Fontana Bookshop is at Strathmore University. You can find the book there. Writers Guild as well. They have a bookshop at Hazina Towers. I would encourage you to start there. But should you need more help, please talk to me. So some of the help that I normally give for those who are younger, we do financial planning. Basically managing your finances well to ensure that they serve you now and even in retirement. For those who are approaching retirement, the planning, of course, involves financial, but it's geared for retirement season. We do training to corporates, individuals, groups. I present in AGMs and any other forum that people would want to be trained. But if you have your pension plans, you're probably an individual, you have changed jobs, you want to consolidate your benefits, or you want to start saving, or it's a corporate, I facilitate that. I even help organizations that don't have retirement benefits plans, but have gratuity funds, where we can invest those gratuities to ensure that they are growing. And for those who are approaching retirement and they need to make decisions about whether to buy an annuity or income drawdown, I can help you with that, identifying the right providers for you and facilitating that transaction. And also, when you have that extra cash, and you need to keep it somewhere, we facilitate with money market accounts, and even those who want to go into bonds, we facilitate. You can either buy directly from central bank, or we can help you buy from fund managers, or you can even buy through your commercial banks. Basically, if you need any help, we are here to help you. Thank you very much. I hope you have learned something, and I'm ready to take any questions that you may be having.
Thank you very much, Rose, for that presentation. I think the message is quite timely and it has been delivered very well. The members appreciate. I think the first question that has come in is, please tell us something about cryptocurrencies and blockchain investments. I think these are some of the trending investment options that we've not covered in our presentation. Maybe you can expound on some of them.
Yeah, that's a topic I try to avoid, but it seems like I can't really. So for me, I've tried to study cryptocurrency. I've listened to people, but for me, I still don't understand what that is. But my take is that, and I stand to be corrected, and I know this is controversial, to me, in putting money in cryptocurrency is basically speculating. And the reason here is that there is no underlying asset. You see, when you buy land, you buy an asset. When you buy bond, it's an asset. But when you buy cryptocurrency or when you invest in cryptocurrency, what have you put in? Where have you put your money in? So for me, until I learn something new, I find that cryptocurrency is something that people get into and they do the mining. I don't know how it's done. And basically you hold something that there is no way of improving it. And you're hoping that somebody else will want it more than you do, and they'll be willing to pay for a higher price. Now, when I invest in shares of a company, I'm investing in the business that they're doing. And they've made prospectus, they've told me this is what they do, and this is where the company is likely to grow to. And I can evaluate that, and I can see what affected it. When I buy a bond, this is a promise by the government that they're borrowing this money to provide services for their for their country, and they will generate revenue out of that, and they'll be able to pay me back. Now, somebody needs to tell me what happens with crypto, because I personally don't understand. So for me, I would say, when you put your money there, you are risking your money. And I think we have seen that happen in the last month. And there have been very many investments, many have gone down. And for me, I usually say, when you invest money somewhere where there's an option of losing it or gaining, that is not an investment. Investment is when you put your money somewhere expecting it to grow. Now, when you expect to lose it, then that is betting, that is gambling, that is not investing. Because even when you put money in shares of a company, the overriding thought that made you invest there is that this business will grow. If you knew a company is going down, I don't think you'd be putting your money there. So sometimes businesses don't do well as expected, and that is okay. And sometimes these are seasons, it may not do well, but later it could actually do better, but it could even go out of business. But your intention, well, I mean, what you had in mind is that it is going to grow. Now with cryptocurrency, for me, it does not meet those two requirements. There's no underlying asset, and there's actually a possibility of gain or loss. So that is not a pure investment.
Okay, that response is well noted. A further explanation is being sought on deferred annuities. Maybe you can expound on that.
Yeah, so deferred annuities, like I said, it's an investment you make with a lump sum. Some companies don't have minimum, but some have like a minimum of $500,000. And this is an investment, you put your money and you defer access to money. That's why they are called deferred annuities. And when you access your money, it comes in form of an income. An annuity is an income. So for instance, I give an example of someone who put in 4 million and deferred their investment for 15 years. That means during those 15 years, the money is invested, it's growing, and they do not have access to it. However, in event of death during that period, their next of kin or their beneficiary would be paid, including the interest the money would have accrued up to that point. But after 15 years, you can choose how you access that money. Okay, you make the choice now as you defer. So you can either access that money every month for the rest of your life, or you can access that money for a period of years. So you can access it monthly, semi-annually, quarterly, or any of those frequencies. You can define that frequency, but it's either for a limited number of years or for the rest of your life. So some people, especially those who do not have retirement benefits, you can actually, if you make profits from your business, you can come with your 10 million, buy a deferred annuity. If you don't know, if you want to access the retirement income 5 years from now, defer for 5 years, and then you start receiving an income for the rest of your life. But even those who are in retirement benefits, this is one of the things that, this is one of the ways you're supposed to access your money, either an income drawdown, which is basically reinvesting your money and accessing it as it is still growing, or buying an annuity. At retirement, if you want your money immediately, we normally buy what you call an immediate annuity. But a deferred annuity basically means you put in your money, you defer access for a specific number of years, and then you access your money in regular form, either for a limited number of years or for the rest of your life.
Very well said. I think I'll move over to the next question. What are the major challenges that effective retirement plan faces? So if you have an effective retirement plan, though you run into challenges, what are the challenges that someone can anticipate?
Yes, there are various challenges that you can anticipate, and I think I mentioned some of them. And I think the one of them is just longevity. I think I would want people to seriously think about that. Living much longer than you actually anticipated. That is one of the greatest challenges. So you need to plan for retirement as a long-term event, not a very short-term, so that you ensure that you do not outlive your investments or your savings. The other thing that you need to consider is dependence, especially in our context. We have dependents. We have our parents, we have our cousins, depending on which part of the country you come from. I think Brian has more dependents than I do. Where you live communally, you probably have so many people to support. Now, it's important that you plan that, because you could think that once you educate your children, they'll be on their own, they'll be independent, but they could come back home, or they might not get jobs, and they continue being dependent on yourself for much longer than you planned. So it's important to plan for dependence. And I keep saying, for those who are younger and your parents are still working, if your parents are not planning for retirement, in our Kenyan context, you are going to take care of their retirement. So it's important that you also talk to your parents and find out how they are planning. And if they're not planning, then you need to plan for them. That is another risk. The other thing that could affect your retirement is things like taxation, where we know once you reach age 65, for example, you don't pay tax on your income. And I think this is a big misconception that people are yet to correct. The law had allowed that once you reach age 65, you can access your retirement benefits without paying any tax. And that was a very welcome move, and it worked for a few years, but the government changed. And they said, if you access your retirement benefits in any form other than monthly, you'll continue paying tax even if you are 65. So some people had deferred access and they wanted to take lump sums to go build a home or start a business. But now that money will not be enough because the government has changed taxation. So whether it is in retirement benefits or other investments, it's important to be aware. And these factors, when they're all put together, then what we need to do is to ensure that we diversify our investments. Because if you put all your money in one investment, retirement benefits, then the law changes, it will affect the income that you have. Or you put all your eggs in property, and then there is capital gains tax, there is now taxation, amongst other things, it's going to affect. So those are just some of the things that could happen. Ill health of your own health or your spouse's, you probably had enough resources, but your spouse is unwell, you have to take care of them, then ends up dying, they leave you without money. Now, again, you don't have a retirement plan. So the most important thing is to make sure that you're using all the tools that you need to. So diversification is one tool, and also making use of insurance is another tool. Because I think in our Kenyan context, we don't utilize insurances. And yet, if, for example, in that case I've just given, if the spouse who dies, having used a lot of their assets, if they still had a life insurance, which is usually not very expensive, the kind of insurance, we call them term insurance, which only pay on death. So there is no cash back in the event you survive. At least they would have something left for the surviving spouse. So it's making use of all available financial tools. And that's why I say sometimes you might not be aware of these tools and you might need help. So it's important to seek help so that you're able to develop a plan that takes care of all these contingencies. But yeah, those are some of the things that I would consider quite common amongst Kenyans.
Thank you, Rose. I think I'll field two more questions. I think so many questions are coming in based on the interest from the members. What are the which way is the money market likely to go, given the general economic situation in Kenya and the world?
Now, I don't know if you're asking about the money markets, because that's a totally different thing, or money market fund, which I talked about. Money markets is basically the short-term, the market for short-term. So where the treasury bills are sold, fixed deposits and all that. A money market fund is a tool you can use to invest through a fund manager who invests in all those money market tools. Now, no one can predict with certainty what will happen tomorrow. I can only give indications of what is likely to happen. So since COVID time, what we saw is that the interest rates have been going up. And so the effect of that is that the interest rates also on some of these investments have been able to remain relatively high. So we don't know what will happen. We don't know the next shock that will happen and what it will impact. But the most important thing to know is that the money market fund, which I talked about, is that those ones tend to be quite correlated with what the central bank is doing, because they normally set the minimum interest rates and they'll normally run around what is happening. So the trend has been, because of this inflation and the circumstances in the world, they have been going higher. So we are seeing money market funds posting returns of between 8 and 9%, which I would say is a good return, but we know that can change anytime. However, when we look back at the history of a number of years, they've always operated way above the Treasury bill. So if Treasury bill, the 91-day Treasury bill is giving a certain rate, let's say 7%, money markets always tend to give a little bit higher because of the way they are designed. They're able to go even bid for the same Treasury bill, but because of volumes, they're able to get high. So money markets so far has been good. It's one of the good investments you can have to put the money you need in the short term, but also for your emergency funds. They give decent rates. They tend to give decent rates, even better than fixed deposit accounts. But again, like I said, even as you put your money in money markets, we also need to diversify and put it into other investments. So far the rates are good, but we don't know what will happen next. We cannot predict with accuracy what will happen.
Okay, the last set of questions: is investing in SACCOs a good way to save money for retirement? And the next one is, which insurances have you found to be friendly for retired people, excluding NHIF?
Okay, so first SACCOs. I get a lot of engagement with my clients on SACCOs.
Members, kindly let's mute our mics. Shadrach.
So SACCOs, I would say, is it an investment? First of all, let's look at SACCO. Then why do many people join a SACCO? Many people join a SACCO, yes, to save, but ultimately to take a loan from it. Now, one of the biggest challenges, and I was very surprised, I knew it theoretically, but until one of my clients who is still an official in a SACCO told me, she worked with one of the leading organizations in the country. She's been an official in that SACCO, and she told me, anyone who retired with a loan in that particular SACCO, and it's a big SACCO, without fail, 100% defaulted on loans at one point. 100%, everyone. That means we need to get out of debt way before we retire, because it will become a big burden. Now, SACCO can help you make use of good debt. And good debt, we know, is debt you use to buy assets, which grow in value and put money in your pocket, give you an income. But if you join a SACCO, but you're using it to meet your regular expenses, so instead of saving for school fees, you go into the SACCO and borrow to pay school fees. You can in emergencies, but it should not be your usual way of funding things, because you pay school fees more than everybody else. If I save and pay school fees worth 60,000, but you take a loan, you'll be paying that same school fees for much, much more than the same value that I'm putting in. So a SACCO is a good tool. It can actually help you meet some of your financial goals. But I would say a SACCO would work well for those who are disciplined, who are using it for the right purpose. So for me, I normally encourage people, yes, you can have a SACCO also as a diversification asset. You already have insurances, you have bonds, you have retirement benefits, you have property, you have something else. Yes, you can also have a SACCO, but you need to be very, very careful that it doesn't drive you into debt, because ultimately bad debt will do you more harm than good. So some of my retired clients maintain their SACCOs, their SACCO savings, and as a diversification, and they say, I already have money in everything else. When I need this money, I can always go back for it. But most of them will resolve not to take a loan in retirement or a few years before retirement. So depending on how disciplined you are, you can, but also remember being in a circle, sometimes you end up owing the circle money even if you didn't take a loan. So your friends will come and they'll want you to guarantee them. So when you guarantee them, you need to ensure that you actually need to put what you've guaranteed to be your own debt, because if they're not able to pay, you will have to pay. So I think you can use the circle to diversify. You can use it when you need good debt, but you need to be careful. At certain point, you can still remain in circle, but decide I'm not guaranteeing anyone and I am not taking any loans, and especially as you move towards your retirement. The other one is about insurance companies. There are many good insurance companies in this country, very, very many. And different insurance companies are good in different products. There are some who are very good in annuities, some who are very good in pensions, some who are good in service. You know, some have good returns, some have volatile returns. So it all depends. And I wouldn't want to be advertising. No one has paid me to advertise for certain companies, but we'll probably talk of the leading providers. I'll mention the leading providers. They are not the only ones. So we have companies like ICA Lion, very big in saving for retirement and also in retirement income products. We have Jubilee Insurance. I don't know if it's still called Jubilee. Yeah, Jubilee Insurance, the life company. Britam is also one of them, quite good with both saving for retirement and retirement income products. We have Kenindia. We have an upcoming one called Prudential. They started recently and they have very good returns, especially for saving towards retirement. I've just mentioned a few. These are not the only one. There are actually 22 companies, insurance companies, that are in the retirement benefit space. And most of them offer very good products. It's just that as an insurance agency, I wouldn't be able to build relationships with all of them. So I'm continually increasing the companies that I'm working with, but the ones I have mentioned are the ones I'm doing a lot of business with at the moment. But they're not the only ones. There are much, much more that you can work with.
Thank you very much, Rose, for those responses to the many questions that have come in from the members. You can actually tell the level of engagement. The members have actually been very engaged based on the type of questions that have come in. At this point, I will welcome the Executive Director and CEO at KIM, Dr. Murithi Ndegwa, to give us his closing remarks. Karibu, Edie.
Thank you very, very much, Rose. I think many of us would quite frankly agree that the discourse you've given us is very enlightening, and also that we have learned quite a lot from you. Allow me to say thank you very much to all those who logged in. I saw at peak we had about 100 or thereabouts. So to all those who logged in today, we thank you very much for having joined the discourse of the evening. We also want to especially remember the first timers. I saw quite a number of people who I think logged in for the first time. We also want to appreciate those who logged in early. At the time when we were starting, because we started exactly 3 o'clock, I saw like we were slightly more than 40. So thank you very much, and sincerely apologies for having delayed through the hitch that we had. We also want to appreciate those who've been with us since we started. We're having these webinars after 2 weeks, and usually the webinars come, in fact, not usually, all the time they come at 3 o'clock on alternate Thursdays. And we've been on this since the days of COVID. So we are actually clocking about 2 years since we started these webinars. So those who've been with us since that time, thank you very much. We do also want to appreciate the governance organs. I think I saw Justice Jamila Mohammed. I don't know whether she's still there. I saw Ms. Lucy Munjuga. She's also part of the governance organs. Thank you very much for the support that you give us. In a nutshell, Rose would want to say thank you very, very much for that excellent discourse. You've really done justice to the topic, and you've educated us so much in regard to what we need to do in terms of retirement. And you made it so easy, so much so that we're able to follow through in terms of the discussion that we had. So thank you so much, Rose. We really do appreciate. And you've also, I think, mentioned something that I will want to pick up, that we may need to have a webinar on investments. Is that what you said? And for us, I think that may be an excellent subject of discussion. So we are likely to come back to you. And on behalf of the KIM management, KIM as an institute, we want to say thank you so much to Rose for that excellent discourse, to all of you members for having listened through the presentation. As we say, all these presentations, including the one of today, will be made available through email to those who are bona fide members. In other words, those who have paid for their annual subscription. So if you haven't paid, please ensure that you pay, and then we will ensure that we send this presentation and any other that has been done for the last 2 years to yourselves. With that, I want to say thank you very much. Have a blessed evening, and we look forward to meeting with you once again on another day. Rose, especially, we want to say thank you very much. That was an excellent discourse. Bye for now, and have a good evening.
Thank you.